So hello, I'm Katy McKinney. I'm the founder and head of school for Lafayette Academy. And we're talking about education. We're talking about the purpose of education. I founded a school in St. Louis and did it because I was frustrated. I was frustrated with the mediocrity I was seeing in both public and private education, having taught in public school, having taught in private, and then homeschooling my own children. I came to really hone what I was looking for as a parent. And as I did that, I discovered that there was a phenomenal avenue in classical education. But as I did that, I also saw more, as you juxtapose classical education with what's currently the norm, the chasm is wide and deep in terms of what our kids are receiving nationwide. And so at this point, it occurred to me, at that point I should say, that there needed to be something done about education. So what does one do? You crazily decide to start a school. So the impetus to start the school was to save the country through our children and by means of giving them a great education. So just wanted to share with you some of the problem, what we're seeing, and I'm sure most of you are seeing this as well, but maybe, it's at least for me, 10, 15 years ago, I couldn't articulate what the problem was. I just knew my kids weren't happy. I knew they weren't being stimulated, they weren't being challenged. And through further research and through just my own discovery, I came to understand more what the problem was. So there is a crisis. The crisis, if you follow the Cato Institute at all, they put out recently a very thorough stat about the current trends in American public education. I'll just read here, quote from the Cato Institute, that the total cost of a full K through 12 education, so that's what is it going to cost for my student, my child, to go from kindergarten through 12th grade if they were to stay in public school education. And in 1970, that stat was $57,602. Okay, interesting. In 2010, that cost has inflated to $164,000 and change. And those are constant dollars back, I guess, in 2013. That's, I guess you could say, okay, if I'm investing that much money through my tax dollars, what's the return I'm getting? What's the ROI? And unfortunately, in the stat I'm looking at, the graph, you can see in the reading, the mathematics, and in the science department, the scores have pretty much remained stagnant over the last 40 years. And what's the conclusion to this is that 1 in 3, that's not a good stat, 1 in 3 eighth graders are functionally illiterate. And this is according to what's called the nation's report card. It's the worst eighth grade literacy rate on record. Now, we were told, 15, 20 years ago that we had this new thing called Common Core that was going to save the day. And this stat now that's coming out is sobering. I believe it was Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education, back during Trump's first go around, that she said it is a crisis in American education and we need to do something. And that was, a little ways back. So when this idea of starting a school came to be, it was, again, really to challenge this mediocrity that we're seeing nationwide. And so having been in public and private education for 20 years, I did see the abuses. I saw the infringements of our children, and it was suffocating our children. In fact, it hit home for me personally when my own son was in public school for his second grade year. And, in some of these schools, they have this opportunity where if your child tests high enough, they can be in the gifted program, which is taught once a week for a certain amount of hours. Well, he just missed the cutoff. And so he would be in his room. And it appeared to me, I went and started volunteering in the classroom, spoke with a second grade teacher at the time, said, hey, are you teaching handwriting? Are you teaching cursive? And she said, we don't have time. We have to stay on, quote, script. They had a book. They had, I think, 3 second grade classes at that time. And they had to all be in lockstep teaching the same thing at the same time. So if you have some kids, like my child, for example, who wanted to kind of move at a faster pace, that's not going to happen. If you've got kids who are trailing behind, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to help you either. The middle of the road kids, I guess they got what they needed, but you've got 2/3 then of the class not being fed frankly, and they're starving on the vine. And so what do you do as an educational institution? Public school at this point is not being able to meet those needs. And so if you homeschool, great, you can probably meet your child's needs, but what if you can't homeschool? So that was really the impetus for me starting my school, was really bred out of seeing how my kids were thriving and being a lover of education, having a love of children. And really, in the essence, what I thrive off of is watching kids succeed, giving them tools, challenging them, pushing them, encouraging them to believe in themselves, and then watching them take flight. It gives me goosebumps every time, and I just get the biggest thrill out of it. And so I get to see that happening now on a daily basis, kindergarten through 12th grade. But that's in a classical school, we teach, frankly, basically a gifted program to everyone, every day, every hour of the day. And you might say, okay, well, my kid probably isn't gifted. Doesn't matter. What's lovely about it is the substance that we're giving is accessible to every single child. And we have support systems for kids who come in behind grade level or whatnot. So in any case, the idea here is that the classical approach is giving the children the knowledge so that they can be able to be independent thinkers, critical thinkers, which is greatly lacking, in my opinion. And to think deeply and critically and fearlessly, those are things that our culture is in desperate need of. And fearlessly, frankly. There's so much social pressures all around us, especially as our kids are so much younger these days. The pressures are infiltrating them at such a younger age than it was when we were all kids in the 70s and 80s, that ability to think courageously, fearlessly, not go with the masses, right? Not follow the mob. It's the mob of thought, I guess. That takes a very discerning thought, and that is something that we work to cultivate all the time at our school. So this idea here that we have a crisis in education is real. We see it in the numbers. You can, like I said, go to thenationsreportcard.com. You can see it there. The Cato Institute is reporting data. And so as I homeschooled, I realized this could potentially be the answer to classically educate. So with that understanding, I think it's helpful for parents to know to seek out what is the nearest classical school near you. It could be a charter school. It could be a private school. It's helpful to jump on the internet. Where are the classical schools near me? Seek them out, interview them. Perhaps in another podcast, I can share with you, how do you interview a school? I've got some 5 main points, and you can look for those when you interview, because frankly, as you walk into a school for the first time, just as they're interviewing you, frankly, you should be interviewing them as a parent. You are the customer. You're going to be plunking down your $10,000, $15,000, and you want to know what's the ROI for that investment. And it's the most important ROI you have, which is your child. So I have a list of different things you should look for, and depending on the answers of that school, you'll either get a red flag and you know what, this is not a school for me, or the green flags start waving and you say, okay, I think this aligns with what we are, who we are. Does it support your family culture? Does it complement what you're doing rather than pulling your child away from your family or even worse, making them retrograde? So all of these things are very important, and I think this idea of tackling this crisis in education, family by family, and basically seeking out the solution at this point, that's what we have to do on our own, but that's what we've done in Lake St. Louis. And if you're interested, you can definitely come and check us out, but there are classical schools nationwide that you can check out as well. Highly recommend, though. It's been a game changer for my family. It's been a game changer for the families who have joined us. Frankly, it's been a game changer for me personally. There's so much that I did not get because I was not classically educated. I'm trying to catch up now with my kids. And that was another interesting thing, is when I was homeschooling my children, I recognized that they were, let's say, 4th grade, 1st grade, and then he was 2.5, my youngest. And I knew even then they were starting to move quickly. They were loving learning, which every child, every human being should love to learn. That's what we're bred to do. We're bred to grow and know and learn and move. And but I knew there'd be a point at which they would tap out of my education, because unfortunately I had a ceiling, hence because I wasn't classically educated. So they have not only shattered that ceiling, but they've gone way above, which I'm thrilled for. Every generation should make progress from the one previous, but it is now my opportunity to continue to catch up with them. I want to. And so we do have opportunities for parents too at our school to educate themselves if they realize that, I didn't get this. What can I do? So we have some ways that parents can parallel along with their children, so that then the idea is that when you sit down as a family for dinner, you can have this great convergence of ideas, talk about what they learned. You can stretch them, you can challenge them, you can complement what they're learning through your own knowledge and your own experience. And what that does is it helps pull the family unit together, which is part of my secret agenda, is to help support the family unit, strengthen it, unify it in a way that only education can. And we've seen that time and time again happening with our families through the field trips that we offer, through the parent engagement that we offer, through a curriculum that we offer. It's just been a wonderful unifying effect on everyone, an elevating effect. So check out Classical Education. And if you want to know more, if you're here locally, come make an appointment. Would love to sit down with you. We can talk further about it. But it's definitely something worthy of your attention to attack this crisis that we're seeing in America today.